And we're at 6:29, and it looks like 18 seconds, so we're not far away. We just hit 50 seconds, so we got 10 to go. The Hewitt City Workshop meeting will come to order, please. Will you poll to see who is in attendance?
Ben Kelly,
Here.
Bruce,
Here.
Fort Berry,
Yes, ma'am.
Fuller, Walkthorpe,
Present.
Turner.
Here. Okay. Item number 2, the briefing and discussion concerning fiscal year 2020-2021 proposed budget. Though I will let you have this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. In keeping with what we did at the last meeting and having some presentations done by department heads, I wanted to try to wrap that up this evening before your regular meeting, since you're contemplating the budget. Tonight, the first person that you would hear from would be General Services Director Scott Coleman, and then Community Development Director Tracy Langford. So if it's all right with you, Mr. Mayor, I'd ask Mr. Coleman to come give us his presentation.
Yes, sir.
All right, put together a quick presentation for you. I'll try not to take too long. Forgive me if I bumble through a little bit. What we have here in personnel, we'll start there. As far as in the general fund, we have parks, streets, fleet, and building maintenance. These are all funded via the general fund. We have 9.5 employees. I know that might sound a little odd, but there's a reason for the half. One general service director, half an operations supervisor. We'll touch a little more on that later. One administrative assistant, one parks crew leader, one streets equipment operator, 2 parks field assistants, 1 fleet mechanic, and we're asking in this proposed budget for a new position of another streets field assistant and a custodian. The total for salaries, overtime, TMRS, Social Security, insurance, and workman's comp is $576,334. Going back to the personnel in the drainage fund, drainage maintenance, these employees are funded by the actual drainage fund. Got 4.5 employees. There's the other half of that one employee from the other fund. This being a supervisor position, he would kind of oversee 2 separate departments. That's why he's put the way he is. We have 1 crew leader, 1 senior equipment operator, and 2 drainage field assistants. Total there is $264,660. Again, that covers salaries, overtime, TMRS, Social Security, insurance, and workman's comp. I should note that I put a page number there off to the side that if you want to look in your actual proposed budget, you can kind of see a little more information in these areas. We'll move on to operational expense, general services. Located on pages 10, 11, 12, and 26. Of course, I can't really bump through them pretty fast, but these expenses are for maintenance, services, and supplies, and do not include personnel. Parks, $56,850. That's for park maintenance, repairs, and groundskeeping. Streets is $206,350. That's for street repair and maintenance. General service is $38,875. That's for fleet maintenance, janitorial supplies, building maintenance, and groundskeeping. In that case, it's the groundskeeping for the actual buildings. Drainage is $119,305. That's for drainage repairs and maintenance and right-of-way maintenance. Total general fund is $302,75. Total drainage is $119,305. The total operation expenses per department, $421,380. We'll get you the good stuff now with equipment and improvement requests. One of the first things I noticed was the bathrooms here at the parks, they're needing some renovation. Requested bathroom renovation and some benches, $20,920. Those will be funded by certificate obligations of 2017. In the streets, I requested a crack sealing machine. In my opinion, much needed service needs to be done to maintain the streets that we have and prolong their life. That's been put to short-term financing. In drainage, requested a 2020 John Deere 333G. That's with the forestry package that'll help us clear out some of the silt and debris that's in some of our channels and also remove trees, limbs, and overgrowth of brush and whatnot. That's also been moved to short-term financing. Miscellaneous drainage improvements, $80,000 for capital for the drainage fund. That's for, like it says, miscellaneous improvements that help kind of along the lines of improving some of our channels and whatnot. Future planning. In the parks, we have down here, we have Warren Park restroom renovations and new benches, Hewitt Park restroom renovations and new benches and parking lot paving. 5-year plan development in conjunction with the Parks and Beautification Board. That's something that I want work with the Parks and Beautification Board on to kind of develop a 5-year plan. I know there's been some plans that have been previously developed. I guess we can kind of touch over and see if there's any heartfelt changes or whatever, or that maybe fiscally need to change as far as funding. In the streets, we have implement a crack sealing plan, continue implementing the slurry seal program, continue identifying and implementing capital improvement street projects, identify and rectify areas in need of proper street signage. In the drainage area, continue developing and implementing drainage maintenance program that complies with current and future TCEQ MS4 requirements. That's a fairly new requirement, but their TCEQ is pretty serious about it. Continue curb repairs. We've identified many throughout the city. As a matter of fact, the council has approved recently to get a portion of those done. Channel and ditch silt clearing and overgrowth removal, and gutter cleaning and silt removal. In the police department, the future plan for to further equip the shop, safe and proper tooling and equipment, develop and implement a citywide maintenance scheduling system that will allow better preventative maintenance on city vehicles. Identify and replace vehicles and equipment that have exceeded their usable service. Building maintenance would be employ a custodian on city staff for responsive cleaning and building maintenance. Develop and implement a maintenance program for city facilities and janitorial maintenance needs. That said, that's my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd like to answer them.
Anyone have any questions? Michael?
Mr. Mayor and Scott, not micro seal, sorry, wrong page. The crack sealing
Yes, sir.
machine. In the past, we've done the slurry seal, and that's been taken care of. That's what we've been doing. This is in addition to the the slurry seal. Is that correct?
Correct. The slurry seal is great for finishing and capping off smaller cracks. Some of the issues we're having are your larger cracks that it's not exactly meant to seal the larger ones, and that's what mainly the water that would get into the base and the substructure of the streets could potentially get in through.
This is a purchase that is a looking forward type thing, if taking some of the maintenance back into our own hands, taking care of our roads, maybe delaying, needing some major work or some other work. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yeah, just to add a little preventative maintenance to the streets to
Right.
delay them needing to reconstructed.
Okay,
For example, on the last project, well, actually, the last few projects, we did a reclamation on April and December Street where we paid a contractor to go through and crack seal. We could do stuff like that ourselves. Same with our recent slurry program. We had a contractor crack seal prior to the application of slurry. We could do that ourselves too.
okay, and thinking back, and I drive down Spring Valley quite a bit, that's the type of work Spring Valley's seeing a lot of, is the crack sealing.
Yes, sir, it's a TxDOT street. You'll
Okay.
notice that TxDOT's pretty diligent about keeping
Crack
cracks sealed.
seals,
Yes, sir.
okay, okay. And the paving at Hewitt Park, is that to add pavement, or is that to replace existing pavement?
Well, it's a project that's been started before.
Mhm.
The actual gravel parking lot that's there now, it's to pave it.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And that's at Hewitt Park, not Warren Park?
No, Warren Park. I'm
Warren
sorry.
Park,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Okay. That's it, thank you.
Is that everything?
Mhm.
One question from me. The TCEQ MS4 requirement, the new one you said,
Yes, sir.
does it deal strictly with like drainage maintenance, or is it more the planning of how you're gonna handle it? Which one does it address the hardest? Or
It touches a little bit of everything. As far as maintenance, we have to provide proof on our permit, on our annual report, that we're overseeing the maintenance of the drainage and making sure that there's not any pollutants getting into the system, stuff of that nature. That we're cleaning silt and debris to keep it from going into a waterway that's further down the stream, so to speak, stuff like that.
Does it involve trying to draft some kind of a, for lack of a better term, master plan, long-term, or is it just dealing with the physical part of making sure nothing gets in there that it would be EPA compliant?
One of my first task here as Director of General Service was to develop the actual current stormwater management plan that we have now. So that's been done, we just kind of have to follow it. And then annually, they make you permit every 5 years, I believe. And then annually, you have to report on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else?
Just one question, Mr.
Yes,
Mayor.
Dr. Bruce?
So Scott, am I correct in that on page 28 in the drainage fund capital projects, there's just over $1 million worth of projects there, channel clearing, reshaping on Flat Creek, Old Temple, Spring Valley, West Hill? Familiar with that part of the budget?
Yes, ma'am.
So the two pieces of equipment, the track loader and the crack sealing equipment, am I correct in that those two pieces of equipment could take care of that portion of those projects?
The actual John Deere machine could definitely be used to utilize a lot of that work. The crack sealing more itself, it's not necessarily for drainage as it is for the actual street repairs.
And that's just over $1 million worth of projects?
Right.
Thank you.
Is that everything?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Palmer? Mayor Pro Tem Walkenhour?
No.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the last presentation that I'd like to get done by the department for you is with Tracy Langford, our community development, community services director. And I think the emphasis of this conversation with you today is to talk to you and confirm with you about development activities that you see ongoing in the community and how that's been occurring over the last few years.
Okay, as Mr. Thomas stated, not really going to be talking about my budget. I'd have including myself, 3 full-time employees, and we oversee basically any of the new construction or construction in general that happens within the city. We typically have about 50 to 55 new houses built a year on average, and we do about 3,100 inspections a year. Out of that number, only about a quarter of those are new construction. To let you know, the rest of it is commercial, some duplexes here and there, apartments, and remodels. Biggest part of what we do are remodels or small permits for houses. We currently have 199 lots that are on the ground or are in process of being completed right now. We have a number that I didn't realize. We've got about 1,100 acres of vacant land still left in Hewitt. Now, some of that is, the bigger part of it is in the Commerce Park area, but we have some here on the south end of town as well. And that number is taking out these current subdivisions, housing subdivisions that are going in, just to give y'all an idea of what we do have left. And with that, Mr. Mayor, that's pretty much what I have. If y'all got any questions.
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem?
actually, I have one question. What is the current status of these abandoned apartments around the corner?
They are, or have since been re-permitted, and they've restarted construction on them. So they basically took a 2-year leave on them, and with some help from the attorneys, we've got that fixed, and they're back under construction again.
So they're all in compliance with the city code?
They're getting into compliance.
Getting there.
They're not there currently,
Okay.
but they have recommenced on construction of them.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bo?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the last thing I wanted to point out with you this evening in terms of budget is, one, this sheet that you see that has the Hewitt Civil Service Classification Plan on it. This is a corrected version of the classification plan that's in your budget document. The change that occurred in this really has no material impact to the budget numbers, but what it did do was, somehow on our old plans, we had the ending step for the sergeant's pay greater than the beginning step for the lieutenant pay. And we felt like we needed to go in and correct that, because there's not a whole lot of motivation there if you're gonna be promoted and take a pay cut. The other thing that you have is the latest information regarding sales taxes. And the reason I wanted to point this out to you is because I think it's very indicative of where we're at and why we budget the way we budget. But if you'll notice, in the month of August, this month, we've received sales tax rebate check in the amount of $298,916. We still have 1 month to go on the fiscal year for the month of September. We've already received this fiscal year $2,686,246. We budgeted $2,561,160. So with 1 month to spare, we're roughly $125,000 up. So, I thought it was important that you should know that this evening, for purposes of the budget. I think the history, and you can look at the totals by way of fiscal year and see how those totals have moved up. You know that our budget projection for sales tax revenue this coming fiscal year is approximately $60,000 greater than it was the year previous. So I think given these numbers, I think our estimate or our projection on sales tax is fairly conservative. And so, just thought I would provide you this information so that you have it this evening. And Mr. Mayor, members of council, that's really all that we had in this short period of time for trying to finish up presentations regarding budgets.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, or wish to address anything? Hearing nothing. Bo, you have anything else to tell us?
No, sir.
Okay, I see we're at 6:49 and 35 seconds, so if not, I will call for item number 3 for adjournment. Do I hear a motion and/or a movement to one?
So moved.
I have a motion from Mr. Fuller. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Fuller and a second from Mr. Fortenberry. Will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Fortenberry,
Yes, ma'am.
Walkmore,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Stanco,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes. It is 6:50 and 19 seconds. This workshop is concluded. We'll begin our regular meeting at 7 o'clock. Current time is 6:59 and 45 seconds. We will begin at 7. The Hewitt City Council meeting will come to order, please. Will you poll the council for attendance?
Van Kelly,
Here.
Briggs,
Here.
Fortenberry.
Here.
Fuller,
Here.
Walsall,
Present.
Turner.
Here. Item number 2, Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Will you join me, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item number 3, hear visitors on matters pertaining to city business. Under the Texas Open Meeting Act, the council is prohibited from discussing, responding, or acting on any comments or items that have not been properly posted on the agenda. Lydia, do we have any tonight? All right. We'll move to item number 4, consider approval of minutes of the city council regular meeting of August 3rd, 2020, and the special call meeting of August 10, 2020. I now open it to council for discussion, questions, corrections, and/or move it to a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem Walkendorf.
I move that we accept the minutes as presented, but to allow for any corrections should they be needed.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion from the Mayor Pro Tem. I have a second from Mr. Bencalli. I call for final question, discussion, and/or corrections. Hearing none, will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Van Kelly,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Fortenberry,
Yes, ma'am.
Fuller,
Yes.
Walsall,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes. Item number 5, presentation of a report from City Engineer Miles Whitney, updating on pending utility projects, update on pending street projects, and update on pending drainage projects. Mr. Whitney?
Good evening. Y'all should have my written report on the utility portion on FM 2113 Spring Valley Road. The contractor is nearing completion of the sewer portion as he approaches Black Diamond. He is taking a little more time now because some of those streets only have, are cul-de-sac streets, so we're having to jockey with traffic on those. There is a second crew to be mobilized on this project to begin some of the water crossings. They're on the north end. So you ought to see potentially another crew on the north side performing that work. East Warren Street Improvements Project, geotechnical bores have been ordered and plan sheets are being cut. I know Mayor Pro Tem asked about that the last meeting, so that is being progressed. Ritchie Road street improvements from Patriot Court to Hewitt Drive, and then from Patriot Court all the way into Park Place. Those plans are completed. Finalizing the construction documents. Basically, all I have left is setting the bid dates, and we'll be setting to advertise there in the beginning of September. If you recall, this is the project going from Hewitt Drive over here to Park Place again, skipping this portion in between that's already concreted, but going in with concrete pavement. FM 1695 sidewalk project. If you've driven down Hewitt Drive, you've noticed the contractor over there working in front of Midway Intermediate along Hewitt Drive. They are focusing on that portion, trying to get majority of it out of the way before Midway starts back up again. Don't know if they'll entirely make it, but they're giving it a try. Drainage projects, 208, 212 cross-country drainage improvements. Again, those plans are completed. I've reached out to the property owner's representative now on a weekly basis, text messages and emails, and as of yet, I'm not getting a reply. The only thing I have left is I'm gonna stop by one day and see if I can visit with them for a little bit. So, but with that, that is my report. If there are any questions or concerns.
Anyone have any questions? Mr. Fortenberry.
On the 208, 212, the cross-country, no reply, they're just not responding at all, and
I'm not even getting a reply back, they're looking into it anymore, so, last reply I got back from anybody over there was probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and the reply was that the property owner has it, and their attorney is reviewing the easement. And that's
is it
where it
holding up any
stands.
other work that's needing to be done, or is it kind
I'm
of?
sorry, what was that?
Is it holding up any additional work that needs to be done, or is it kind of isolated to itself?
It's holding up the entire project at the moment. I mean, we haven't bid it or anything like that, so it's not like we have a contractor
Right.
on the hook or anything like that. But this was the last piece of the puzzle prior to going out for bids.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you, sir. Item number 6, briefing and discussion concerning financial statements ending July 31st, 2020. Bo, will you
Thank you,
address
Mr.
this
Mayor.
one?
Members of council, just, financial statements were sent out to council on, August 11th. I know it's kind of a short window, but we try to place this on the agenda each month, should council have any questions about the monthly financials.
Thank you, sir. Anyone have any questions or concerns? I'm hearing none, so we'll move on then. Item number 7, conduct the second of 2 public hearings on the 2020 tax rate. Before I begin, do we have any comments that have been emailed to us or anything I need to read into the minutes?
No, sir.
All right. Bo, do you have anything to inject before I begin this?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor.
All right. We will conduct the public hearing this way. I will call for those speaking in favor, and I will call for those speaking against. If there are people speaking in both favor and against, then I'll call for a rebuttal to those speaking in favor. I will then call for rebuttal for those speaking against, and then a final rebuttal for those speaking in favor because they have to start. Does anyone have any questions before I begin my public hearing? I'm hearing none, so therefore, I will now open the public hearing. Those speaking in favor, step to the lectern, state your name and address. This is my second call for those speaking in favor. Step to the lectern, state your name and address. This is my third and final call for those speaking in favor. Step to the lectern, state your name and address. Those speaking against, step to the lectern, state your name and address. This is my second call for those speaking against. Step to the lectern, state your name and address. My third and final call for those speaking against. Step to the lectern, state your name and address. Since hearing no one speaking in favor or against, I'll now close the public hearing and open it to council for any comments they might have at this time. Is there any comments from anyone on council? All right. Item number 8, conduct public hearing on the fiscal year 2021 proposed budget. Does anyone have any comments before I begin? Were there any? No emails or anything? Okay. Bo, do you have anything to add before we begin?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I will do my public hearing the same way. I'll have those speaking in favor, then those speaking against, then rebuttal if there's any speaking in favor or against, and then final rebuttal for those that speak in favor. Does anyone have any questions before I begin? Hearing none, I'll now open the public hearing. Those speaking in favor of the fiscal year budget 2020-2021, please step to the lectern, state your name and address. Those speaking in favor of the proposed budget for the year 2020 and 2021, please step to the lectern, state your name and address. This is my third and final call for those speaking in favor of the fiscal year budget 2020-2021. Step to the lectern, state your name and address. Those speaking against, step to the lectern, state your name and address on the fiscal year budget 2020-2021. This is my second call for those speaking against. Step to the lectern, state your name and address for fiscal year 2020-2021. And this is my third and final call for anyone speaking against the proposed budget of the fiscal year 2020-2021 proposed budget. Hearing no one speaking, I will now close the public hearing and open it to the council. Are there any comments or questions? I'm hearing none, so I'll move on to item number 9, consideration of an action on ordinance number 2020-13, accepting the 2020 certified tax roll. Bo, do you need to address this at all?
Just very briefly, Mr. Mayor, it is ordinance 2020-13. It's an ordinance of the city of Hewitt, Texas, accepting and approving the tax roll of the city of Hewitt and declaring an effective rate. This is a part of the process and procedures that you go through each and every year towards adopting a tax rate as well as adopting a budget. The 2020 certified estimate, as we have it today, is $1,033,772,864. With that, Mr. Mayor and members of council, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, sir. I will now open it to the council for any question, comment, and/or movement to a motion to consider or take action on ordinance number 2020-13.
Mr. Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem Walkendorf.
I move to approve ordinance number 2020-13, accepting the 2020 certified tax roll.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Walkendorf. I have a second from Councilman Michael Bencalli. I call for final question and/or discussion. Hearing none, will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Walkendorf,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Fortenberry,
Yes, ma'am.
Fuller,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes. Item number 10, consideration of an action of ordinance number 2020-14, adopting the 2020 tax rate of, to be determined, I assume at this time. Bo, is that correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
All right, do you wish to address this item before I open it to council?
Please, just to recap a couple of items. When the council initially took its record vote for advertising purposes, the actual council was indicated that the voter approval rate was 0.551506. That was not actually what ended up being the voter approval rate the very next day after that record vote. So the actual voter approval rate is 0.548838. Just wanted to get that out there because I don't want a bunch of confusion regarding our advertisement and what the council's intentions and desires are. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I have one question. Our current rate is still, as I understand it, 0.539677. Is that not correct?
That's correct, yes.
All right, sir. All right, I'll now open it to council for consideration, for question, comments, and/or movement to a motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Bruce.
Just a few things I wanted to remind us of from the last couple of meetings that we've had with regards to our tax rate. I think that we're all aware from these discussions that our property taxes present a significant hurdle as we move forward with our financial planning. Those limitations, I think, are going to require us to think critically about how we financially secure our city and the needs that we have, and those that we can reasonably anticipate, which I think our department heads did a really good job of presenting to us. In my opinion, we should be doing this now to alleviate some of the hurdles that we're facing with revenue caps, rising costs for maintaining infrastructure, cost of capital improvements, and increased demands for services. In my opinion, for us to disregard what goes into meeting those needs suitably is financial negligence. As I mentioned, our department heads did a great job of illustrating to us what we need to do to begin to secure our financial security. We've discussed the unrestricted funds that are in our budget, which this fiscal year will be approximately $1.25 million. I think that sounds like a lot of money, but when you think about that in the capacity of our budget, that represents only 12% of our budget. That being considered a rainy day fund, I think, is a conservative option, which gives us some flexibility. For example, covering shortfalls in our budget, of course, is an option. When we have a shortfall and have to consider cutting services, that means that we're getting rid of something that at least a subset of our citizens considers something that is important to their quality of life in Hewitt. I think tonight, when Scott talked about the equipment, the track loader and the crack sealing equipment, those kinds of investments, I think, represent some forethought and critical thinking on the part of our city manager and our department head to think about how to utilize our funds in a way that begins to benefit us long-term. If you looked in the budget on page 28, I mentioned that drainage, those drainage projects that could be taken care of with some of that equipment. That's about $1 million worth of investment there. In my opinion, it's unacceptable to make our city employees bear the burden of a budget shortfall and/or the lack of appropriate planning on our part by taking from them annual raises. They are who keep our city running smoothly and successfully. In my opinion, the $1.25 million we should be using over the next few years to offset any budget shortfalls and strategically add personnel, equipment, services, and accommodate our anticipated growth and service needs. This will help alleviate significant expenses that would accumulate all at once should we not begin to address that. And those expenditures are inevitable and predictably coming. I think our department heads have illustrated that as well. In addition to that, we have to begin to think about, in my opinion, replenishing those funds, however slowly we do that. It's going to be imperative to maintaining our current level of service, not to mention our growth that I think Tracy pointed out tonight, both residentially and commercially. That growth is going to demand additional services. And I don't know that it's something that we think about regularly, but we should. Our public safety costs, rather, in Hewitt are approximately $5 million in our budget. Our property taxes only cover $3.7 million of that. So the two greatest investments that we have, our homes and our health and safety, the two departments that cover that, our property taxes do not even cover the expenses for that department. So even if we were just depending on property taxes, we could not cover our public safety departments. That's something that we need to think about as we move forward. We need to make sure those departments are adequately staffed and have resources that they need to serve the community, especially as we grow. And I think that's been an issue for some time. And I think the last two monthly department reports, if you looked through those, it's apparent that our PD and fire departments could use more staff. I think I mentioned that last meeting as well. And that's independent of and in addition to increased residential and commercial growth that Tracy talked about tonight. I think those two areas of growth are going to demand increased calls for service from our public safety departments. Last week, we also mentioned water, and I think it's interesting that water came up because in the United States, this is something that major cities and small towns are dealing with. It's considered stressed or scarce in most of the United States, and in fact, Texas is considered in the medium to high stress level for water availability. So I think the lack of preparedness for a substantial increase in cost to provide water could prove very costly at various levels, both with infrastructure and with the availability of water. It's likely that we're going to see significant increases in that area as we move forward. If we think long-term sustainability in terms of our initial tax rolls, if they come in at what we were estimated they come in at, which Mr. Thomas just told us about, that gives us a bit of room to our voter approval rate. And while no one wants to pay unreasonable taxes, if we consider increasing our tax rate slightly under the voter approval rate, that would represent an increase of about $15 annually for our homeowners. So $15 annually, which is about $1.25 a month. While that seems like a small increase, it will make up our $35,000 revenue shortfall, and it will add roughly $58,000 to our budget. That allows us to build some cushion to support services and needs the city has gradually, so that we don't have to wait until we have to go to the voters and ask them to approve a higher tax rate. In addition to that, with the passing of Senate Bill 2 this year, we now have this 3-year look-back option that Mr. Thomas mentioned to us last meeting. When you look at that 3-year look-back option, in my opinion, that could be perceived as a misrepresentation of our financial status in the city. If we go back to our citizens in 3 years and say, you know, over the last 3 years, I didn't raise taxes at all, and now I want all 3 years' worth of those taxes. That doesn't seem responsible. It seems like that would be perceived as a misrepresentation, when we could have increased something gradually, and we could have done that with proper vetting through our community. I'd rather go to the voters with things that they see as a need in our community. I think things that are tangible, things like a fire substation that would decrease response times, things like that. I think the voters are more likely to be able to reason through. They see that as a need. They see that it's something tangible. And in my opinion, that is something that I would rather go to the voters with. I think that this was something that we should have considered maybe last year, so that we were not in the situation that we're in now. I think our departments have become accustomed to working with pretty bare budgets and are accustomed to cutting items out of their budget that are reasonable and necessary in many instances. The fact that we have the same number of communication specialists in the PD that we've had for the last 6 years is not an acceptable way to serve our community. So I appreciate the efforts of those department heads and their conservative approach to budgets and how they present things that they need. And I'm not saying that we should play Santa, right, and give them everything that they desire. However, what I'm saying is that reasonable and necessary items should be something that they feel comfortable putting in their budget. They know that they can come to us, that we will carefully and critically think about those needs, that we will trust their expertise for what our community needs from their departments. And that we as a council have made an attempt to secure a healthy financial status for the city that will allow them to operate in a manner by which they can provide the necessary services to our community. I think my last point is our current tax rate dates back to, I believe, 2013. So while you may have seen increases in your tax bill, it's important to note that all of that money doesn't come to the city of Hewitt. And Hewitt has not raised their tax rate since 2013. So if we think about what things cost in 2013, how much it cost you to put a gallon of gas in your car, and how much it costs you to do that today, there are some significant deficits in that time period that we have not made up. So making small adjustments to our tax rate, I think along the way, is something that will result in a more successful financial state for our city moving forward. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem Walkendorf.
even though there may be a shortfall of $35,000 somewhere there in the budget, as our city manager has handled this tonight with our sales tax revenue, we are already, the way I read this, $100,000 plus over what was budgeted. And that's not counting for the month of September. Now, average, I would imagine, in years past, several years, we've brought in $200,000 plus in sales tax revenue for the month of September. That would put us anywhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 to $350,000 over what was budgeted. I think that far exceeds any shortfall of $35,000. I agree that we have to look forward to the future on any needs that the departments in this city may need. But 2 weeks ago, might have been 3, you asked all 3 department heads that were present, Chief Devlin, Chief Bracco, and Wynette, what they needed in the budget. And I believe all 3 of them sat there and said what they needed is what they asked for. Now, I don't see what else they would need that they didn't ask for. They had the opportunity to speak up at that time. We also have another item on the agenda tonight for a master fee schedule, increases here and there. If we have a tax increase along with an increase in some of the fees that we charge, I feel that the citizens are getting nickeled and dimed again. We went through this a few years back under a different administration, and it was nickel and dime here, nickel and dime there. I would not be for a tax increase. That's all.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, if there's no other discussion, then I would move to adopt the 2020 tax rate of .547838, which is below the voter approval rate.
Mr. Mayor, I do have additional discussion. It's okay.
Okay, just a moment.
Okay.
Your proposed motion was for a tax rate of 547838.
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Bancali, I believe you have a comment or question.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I agree with what Dr. Bruce said about critical thinking and planning responsibly. In any given year, I wouldn't hesitate, based on the input that we've had from city manager, department heads, and others. I went back and I looked at our taxable value since 2013. We've had increases in taxable value as high as 11.16% in 2018 and as low as 2.52%, which is this year's increase over last year's taxable income. We're seeing an impact of the protests of people on their property valuations. We've seen a number of years where we are getting extra money year over year, and we are not raising tax rates. Like Dr. Bruce said, 0.539677 has been our tax rate. I only was able to go back to 2013, but that's what it's been since then. And everybody keeps saying, you're raising our taxes, and we aren't raising the taxes. My concern this year is McLennan County is talking about a tax decrease. Midway Independent Schools is decreasing our taxes. And I've talked to a number of people who work for some very large businesses and whatnot here in town, and they're being asked to give back up to a week's pay. We've had other people impacted by not getting income based on the performance of the company. So instead of profits, they're experiencing losses. And then I've talked to some people that lost up to 60% of their income for 3 months. So they've been very severely impacted by this virus crisis. And while I've been very fortunate, a $15 annual increase in my taxes, I can swallow. My concern is this the right year because of this pandemic? And that's a decision that each of us will need to make. But we need to be careful. Like Dr. Bruce said, we have to be responsible. We have to make sure that we can provide the protection to our residents, that we identify the important things that we have to do. And one of the things that we have got to do with 155, I believe it is, new lots and new homes starting, is we must address our water situation. Now, that's not coming out of our ad valorem taxes. So that is not going to be addressed by anything we do with the tax rate. But we've got to deal with that. And we heard Chief Bracco speak last week about a future substation in a different part of town. So we could like Dr. Bruce said, increase our taxes a little bit here, a little bit next year, and a little bit, or tell people, get ready, it's coming, and 3 years down the road, get it all at one time. And that's the decision each of us will have to make tonight. But there are a lot of factors that you have to take into consideration. A shortfall of $35,000 has certainly been covered by sales tax income increases, wouldn't you say, Mr. Thomas?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
can I answer his question?
Yes, sir, you may.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not asking anybody to cut their budget. I've been through budgets where you ask for a new chair, you know, and it's scrutinized. But you ask for $250,000 to pay for something else, and they don't even bat an eye. I'm not trying to penny pinch anything. But I agree, our staff has done an excellent job with the budget this year. They are thinking forward, which I do appreciate. The people of Hewitt do appreciate it. Seeing what, just in the drainage areas, the small things, the cleaning out of silt in areas, making the water flow better. People now know, okay, my drainage fee helped pay for that. Now they can see progress, and that's very important. And making progress in Hewitt without overtaxing people is very important. So the only thing that I have left to say is that each of us will have to make our own mind up and determine if $15 annually is a good thing for everyone, or if it is a killer for half. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Cornberry.
I would like to second the motion that Dr. Bruce made at .547838, which is less than the approval rate that was filed for the benefit of the city of Hewitt, Texas, please.
Okay. I have a motion by Councilmember Bruce, and I have a second by Councilman Fortenberry. I call for final question and/or discussion. Hearing none. Will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Bruce,
Yes.
Walkendorf,
No.
Fortner,
Yes, ma'am.
Fuller,
Yes.
Van Kelly,
No.
Turner,
Excuse me, what was your response?
No.
No? Yes. Item number 11, consideration of an action of resolution number 2020-08, approving fiscal year 2020-2021 master fee schedule. Bo, do you wish to address this?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, and I'll do so quickly. The master fee schedule is part of your 2021 budget. There were several recommendations made in that budget. A master fee schedule to address new fees. In your packet, if you look at the number of the page that's placed in your packet, you'll notice on page 31, the change in permit fees to new construction permits, electrical permits, plumbing permits, and mechanical permits. On page 33, you will notice the one change here of an application for appeal to the Board of Adjustment. And then on page 35, you will see the institution of an out-of-county fee at the library. And then on page 36, you will see a complete renovation of fees for parts of the amphitheater and for the pavilion rental, as well as on page 37, the institution of a water key fee as well. And then on page 38, the establishment of irrigation rates and water. And on page 40, tampering fees, and water taps and meter set fees. With that, Mr. Mayor, members of council, those are your changes in the master fee schedule, as proposed in the upcoming budget.
Thank you, sir. I'll now open it to council for question, discussion, and our movement to a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Bancali.
I move to approve Resolution 2020-08, approving the fiscal year 2020-2021 master fee schedule.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Bancali. I have a second from Mr. Fortenberry. I call for final question and our discussion. Hearing none, will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Fortenberry,
Yes, ma'am.
Bullock,
Yes.
Walkendorf,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Van Kelly,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes. Item number 12, consideration of an action on ordinance number 2020-15, adopting the 2020-2021 annual operating and capital budget. Bo, do you have anything more to add to this?
Just very quickly, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to read the heading for the record. It is ordinance number 2020-15, an ordinance adopting the budget for the city of Hewitt, Texas for the fiscal year beginning on October 1st, 2020 and ending on September 30th, 2021, and making appropriations for each fund, department, project, and account, providing for a savings clause, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing a severability clause, declaring an effective date, finding and determining that the meeting at which this ordinance is adopted was noticed and has been open to the public as required by law, and ratifying the property tax increase reflected in the 2020-2021 fiscal year budget. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now open it to council for comments, questions, discussion, and our movement to a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Bancali.
I move to approve ordinance 2020-15, adopting the 2020-2021 annual operating and capital budget.
I have a motion from Mr. Bancali. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Bancali and a second from Dr. Bruce. I call for final question and our discussion. Hearing none, will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Bruce,
Yes.
Walkendorf,
Yes.
Fortenberry,
Yes, ma'am.
Bullock,
Yes.
Van Kelly,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes. Item 13, consideration of an action on ratification of the property tax increase reflected in the budget. Bo, do you wish to address this before we begin?
Just very quickly, Mr. Mayor, members of council, according to the local government code, chapter 102, municipal budget, section 102.007C, the governing body is required to ratify the property tax increase reflected in the budget. This is one of those lovely measures where the state legislature asks you as the local governing body to ratify and understand what you've just done. With that, Mr. Mayor, that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you. I now open it to the council for question, discussion, and our movement to a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bruce.
I move to ratify the property tax increase reflected in the budget.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Bruce, a second from Councilman Fortenberry. Does anyone have any? I call for final question and our discussion. Hearing none, will you poll the council for a vote?
Van Kelly,
Yes.
Bullock,
Yes.
Walkendorf,
No.
Bruce,
Yes.
Fortenberry,
Yes, ma'am.
Turner.
Yes. Item 14, public hearing and action on ordinance number 2020-16, changing the zoning designation of property known as Lot 5, Block A, Hewitt Mobile Home Park Addition, located at 635-639 Sun Valley Boulevard, from MH Manufactured Home to PB Business Park. I will conduct my public hearing the same as the others. I will call for those speaking in favor. Then I'll call for those speaking against. If there's any speaking in both, I will have then a rebuttal, where I will call for rebuttal for those speaking in favor, then a rebuttal for those speaking against, and a final rebuttal for those that have spoken in favor. Does anyone wish for me to repeat this? Hearing none, then the public hearing is now open. Those speaking in favor on ordinance number 2020-16, please step to the lectern and state your name and address. This is my second call for anyone speaking in favor of ordinance number 2020-16. Please step to the lectern and state your name and address. This is my third and final call for anyone speaking in favor of ordinance number 2020-16. Please step to the lectern and state your name and address. Those speaking against ordinance number 2020-16, please step to the lectern and state your name and address. This is my second call for those speaking against ordinance number 2020-16. Step to the lectern and state your name and address. This will be my third and final call for anyone speaking against ordinance number 2020-16. Step to the lectern and state your name and address. Hearing no one speaking, there will be no rebuttal here. I will close the Hewitt public hearing on ordinance number 2020-16 and open it now to the council and/or Bo. Do you have anything you want to add before I open it for discussion, comment, and/or movement to a motion?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the Planning and Zoning Commission took this up on Tuesday, August 4th, and it was received favorably by them. They were recommending their request being honored on a vote of 5-0.
All right, so it was a unanimous vote from P&Z?
Yes, sir.
All right. I will now open it for discussion, question, and movement to a motion potentially to our council.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Ben Colley.
I move to approve ordinance 2020-16, changing the zoning property located at 635 through 639 Sun Valley Boulevard, also known as Lot 15, Block A, Hewitt Mobile Home Park Edition, from MH Manufactured Home to BP Business Park.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Ben Colley and a second from Councilmember Bruce. I call for final question and our discussion. Hearing none, will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Fuller,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Walkendorf,
Yes.
Fortenberry,
Yes, ma'am.
Van Kelly,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes. Item number 15, public hearing and action on ordinance number 2020-17, changing the zoning designation of property known as Lot 1, Block 1, Royalton Edition, and adjacent MCAD parcel number 139990, located at 701 Hewitt Drive, Hewitt, McLean County, Texas, from C1 Restricted Commercial to C2 General Commercial. I will begin my public hearing in the same manner. Does anyone need me to recover the ground? Hearing no one say so, we'll now open public hearing. Those speaking in favor, step to the lectern. State your name and address. Those speaking in favor for ordinance number 2020-17. This is my second call for those speaking in favor of ordinance number 2020-17. Step to the lectern, state your name and address. This is my third and final call for those speaking in favor of ordinance number 2020-17. Step to the lectern, state your name and address. Those speaking against ordinance number 2020-17, please step to the lectern, state your name and address. This is my second call for those speaking against ordinance number 2020-17. Step to the lectern, state your name and address. And this is my third and final call for those speaking against ordinance number 2020-17. Step to the lectern, state your name and address. Hearing no one, there will be no rebuttal, so we will close the public hearing now and open to council. Before I do, Bo, do you have any input for this one?
Just very quickly, this item was also taken up at the same August 4th, 2020 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it too received a favorable vote of 5-0.
Good. All right, I will now open it to the council for question, comment, and/or movement to a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Fortenberry.
I move to approve the ordinance number 2020-17, changing the zoning of property located at Lot 1, Block 1, Royalton Edition, and adjacent MCAD parcel number 139990, located at 701 Hewitt Drive, McLean County, Texas, from C1 Restricted Commercial to C2 General Commercial.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Fortenberry and a second by Mr. Bencolli. I call for final question and our discussion. Hearing none, will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Walkendorf,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Fortenberry,
Yes, ma'am.
Briggs,
Yes.
Bankole,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes. Item number 16, consideration and action on resolution number 2020-09, ordering a general and special election for the city of Hewitt on Tuesday, November the 3rd, 2020, to be held as a joint election with McLean County, authorizing a contract election services, designating polling places, and authorizing the city manager to execute any documents related to the general and special election. Bo, do you wish to address this?
Mr. Mayor, and members of council, this is basically from the postponement of your May election based upon the pandemic. We're in line with all our usual partners as they have contested elections, and this would authorize us the ability to execute contract agreements with McLennan County, basically to have those elections here in Hewitt.
Is that all?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I will now open it to the council for question, discussion, and or movement to a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bruce.
I move to resolution number to approve resolution number 2020-09, ordering the city's general and special election.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Bruce, a second by Mr. Fuller. I call for final question and discussion. Hearing none, will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Fortenberry,
Yes, ma'am.
Bankole,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Walkendorf,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes. Item number 17, discussion and action on conducting only one council meeting on September the 21st, 2020. Bo, do you have?
Just very briefly, Mr. Mayor, our next regular city council meeting should be September 7th, which happens to be the Labor Day holiday. Did not know if council would prefer to change that date of that meeting, if the council would prefer to, at this point in time, after budget workshops, budget hearings, council meetings, special meetings, you'd like to take a meeting off and get to the 22nd of September, or just which way you'd like to go?
Is that all you have, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll now open it to the council for question, discussion, and or movement to a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bruce.
seeing as we've made it through the budget and tax rate important meetings, I would move to have one meeting in September on September 21st. Is that correct?
21st.
21st. Yes, sir.
Okay. I have a motion to have only one council meeting in September on the 21st. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Bruce and a second by Mr. Bencolli. I call for final discussion and our question. Hearing none, will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Fortenberry,
Yes, ma'am.
Fuller,
Yes.
Walkendorf,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Bankole,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes. Item 18, discussion and briefing concerning the Corona COVID-19 and any actions necessary thereto. Bo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. You, in your packet, you have an updated order as you have been authorizing each time at these meetings, the extension of basically the health and safety plan of local businesses, which requires the wearing of masks and that kind of thing. Now that the state, and I was discussing this with Mr. Dixon, now that the state has implemented the procedures that they have implemented, there's not necessarily a real need for the council to issue this order, Mr. Mayor, but if the council wants to issue this order, it's certainly within your prerogative and purview to do so. The only thing that I did do with this particular order that's different than the other orders is that this order is not just for 14 days to get to the next city council meeting. This order would get through September 23rd. So that you have, September 22nd. September 22nd, because your meeting would be September 21st.
21st, right. Okay? Is that all you have, sir?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
All right, I now open it to the council for discussion, question, and/or movement to a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Fortenberry.
I move to approve the order dated August 18th, 2020.
To go to September
Yeah, we go
the
through-
22nd.
Yes, thank you. Through September the 22nd of 2020.
I have a motion to approve coronavirus action to September the 22nd. I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Fortenberry and a second by Mr. Bancali. I call for final question and/or discussion. Hearing none, will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Van Kelly,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Walkendorf,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Wolfberry,
Yes, ma'am.
Turner.
Yes. Item number 19, executive session. The council will convene into executive session in accordance with the following provisions. A closed meeting will be held pursuant to section 551.087 of the Government Code, VTCA, so that the council may deliberate regarding economic development.
And Mr. Mayor, there is no other action after the executive session other than adjournment.
Yes, sir. Okay, so we need to make a motion here to go into executive session, correct?
Yes, sir.
I'll move.
Do I hear a motion to go into executive session?
I'll move that.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bancali and a second by Mr. Fuller. Will you poll the council for a vote, please? Excuse me. I call for final question and/or discussion. Please do a vote, please.
Bruce,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Walkendorf,
Yes.
Wolfberry,
Yes, ma'am.
Van Kelly,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes. We are now we'll go into executive session. Do you have my paper for me?
Charlie, you have a bottle of water up there?
Time is 8:18:10. I will now entertain a movement to a motion to close executive session and reopen in regular meeting.
So move.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Fuller, a second from Mr. Fortenberry. I call for question or discussion on the motion. Will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Yes. Bruce,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Walkendorf,
Yes.
Fortenberry,
Yes, ma'am.
Van Kelly,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes. Item number 20, adjourn. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Fuller, a second from Councilmember Erica Bruce. There's no call for question or discussion. Please poll the council for a vote.
Fortenberry,
Yes, ma'am.
Fuller,
Yes.
Walkendorf,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Van Kelly,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes, this concludes the Hewitt City Council, 8/19/17.